Welcome to Flights, the podcast where we uncork the secrets to running a successful destination wedding and group travel business. Each episode, we will explore the good, bad, and ugly of destination weddings while sipping on the finest wines from our pantries.
As your hosts, we believe in savoring the journey with a glass of wine in hand. Join us, Mario Lopez and Ashley Morris of Destination Wedding University, as we explore all of the adventures and misadventures that we experience in this crazy industry.
All right. Consults. We said we were going to talk about this in the last one. We are here. We are back. We're talking about consultations. It's another step in the preparing for engagement season.
Absolutely.
I know you're a big fan of consults. It's my favorite part of the whole thing. I could literally just do consultations with new couples all day long. I would be exhausted and I would not talk to anyone for 3 days after, but I could do them all day. I love it.
If I could all day, every day, that's honestly it's my favorite part of the job. I am a extroverted Virgo, which means that I love talking to people and I love nurturing people and like guiding people. And I feel like that is like what a consult is, right?
Yeah, I'm not that. I really have to be in the right mental space for it. I'm like a introverted extrovert or an extroverted introvert, if that helps. Someone explained that to me once, that introvert is not that you're quiet or shy. It's that you have to recharge. Being, that on or that engaged really takes a lot out of you. And that's how I am too. And I know sometimes people think I have the worst RBF ever, but usually I am just processing and coming down from whatever it is. It takes a lot for me to and I'm excited about it. I don't want to make it seem like a chore, but consults are a lot. It's kind of we brought up the dating thing last time. It's a continuation of the dating analogy.
Yep.
It's your first impression. You're telling them about you, you're finding out about them, and you've got to be on. So it's one of those things that I really have to be in the right mental space. And I also can't do too many in a day. And I have to plan time after to kind of decompress, because I do have to kind of turn it on and turn it off. So if anybody sees my bad resting bitch face, it's not that I don't like you. It's just that I being extroverted takes a lot out of me sometimes. And that's, I think, very honest. It's just how we are.
If you see mine, it might be because I don't like you. You
Okay.
never know. That's not.
So let's just get that out there right now. Okay, so consults. We're here to talk about, we're in this whole prepping for engagement season mindset. We talked about this in the last episode, that 40% of engagements happen in the next few months. And this is where both of us get a huge number of our clients for the following year. It's game time. This is when you got to buckle down and do the work.
I feel like I'm putting you're going to know the term. I'm not going to know it. What's this down here? In football?
Oh, you don't want to know what I was about to say. Talking about intrusive thoughts. It's the
war paint.
I don't think we're supposed to say that anymore.
Oh. Damn it.
So we said we would get canceled, and here it comes.
Here it comes.
No, it's the black stuff that football players wear, the reflective stuff. Yes, we're getting ready. It's our Super Bowl. It's our tax season. It is why I don't really go anywhere from January to April if I can help it, because consults. I've got to be on the phone or doing Zooms as much as I can here in the next few months.
All day.
So I, as that extroverted introvert, I think you naturally just love doing this. I had to really teach myself to love it. And something we're talking about, how to help people have better consults and better structure and keep it organized. But I want to start by saying that it's okay if you were like me and don't naturally love it. You can be trained to love this. You can learn. You can have tricks that will help you. If you're introverted, if you're shy, if you just don't like this one-on-one part, there's ways that you can make that work, and we can help give you the tools to make that better.
Absolutely. And I think just understanding the tools and why we do things and why we structure things that way is a part of a confidence, and having that confidence makes it so much easier to do this part of it.
And that's just it. And preparation builds confidence. Your first few are going to be rocky because you haven't done it. And then you'll find a rhythm, and then you'll start to find the joy in it. I have to have a why. They always say when you have a big goal, you have to have a why. Why are you doing it? My why is that I really enjoy helping people, and I really enjoy helping people see that it's not as hard as they think. It's, I am just this girl that grew up in the middle of nowhere, Missouri, and I was able to take 60 people to this destination wedding in Punta Cana and it wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. And I can help you do that. Like some people are just overwhelmed. And so like finding your why and why you love doing this job and really having that like front and center as you prepare for a consult will just help you be in the right mental place.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Okay. So consultations, we talked about the process. You know, you're going to clean up your website, clean up your social, make sure it's a welcome, inviting place that reflects who you are. You're giving them a link to schedule time with you because we believe in boundaries and structure. And then you're getting them on the phone or a Zoom. This is where we're starting. So how do you set up your consults? And then I'll talk about how I do mine.
Okay. All right. My consults, when I first start, now this is already, they filled out the intake form. We're jumping on like into the Zoom or into the Google Meet or wherever we are. How are we kicking it off, right?
Well, okay, but let's pause there because you said intake form and some people may not have that. So intake form is just a few questions that you have, you know, in your scheduler, because of course you're going to set up a scheduler after you hear this because that's going to help you just be more organized. Do you take every consult that fills out a form?
I do not take every consult that fills out a form.
Me either.
No.
Yeah.
So part of that intake form, the reason that we have that intake form in place, and we've touched on this a little bit in episode 6, but just to kind of rehash on episode 7, the reason that intake form is in place is because we want to make sure that we are qualified for them and they are qualified for us. So if there's any red flags that are in that intake form, timeline on when the wedding is, or budget per guest, or budget for the wedding in general, or location. I've had people fill out my intake form and be like, I want to go over to Italy, right?
Oh, yeah.
And my wedding. I would love you to go to Italy and have your wedding. I am not the right person for that.
Exactly.
Right?
We have a question on ours that says, it literally just says, I specialize in all-inclusive resorts in Mexico and the Caribbean. Is this for you? Yes or no? And I make them because sometimes people, you would think all the obvious clues are there. Like every picture on my website is of a beach. I talk about all-inclusive everywhere. But some people just miss that and they don't get it. So we use the form as a screener because you have to protect your time. Time is the only non-renewable resource you have, and you're going to spend an hour-ish on the phone with these people. You've got to make sure they're a good fit because that is time you could spend doing other things.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay. So you screen your forms,
you
focus on the ones that are the best fit for you. And then what happens?
And then I jump in. Then it's like
Virgo magic happens.
This is where the Virgo just shines, beams of rainbow starlight come flowing out of me. Like this is like my Super Bowl. I love doing it. So
Okay.
I jump in and it's a super warm welcome. Like, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time to join me, right? Like basic sales 101.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking the time to come and join me because they could be anywhere else doing anything else. They could be speaking to anyone else. It's so important that they know that you really
They probably are. Let's be real. They probably are shopping.
And some of them even will tell you that they are. Like, hey, I'm having this. I have another consult with someone else, in half an hour. Fine. Awesome. Yeah. Okay. Do it. I encourage it, right? Like they need to know that I want you to be a good fit for us just as much as we want to be a good fit for you, right? So I'm totally fine to go take another consult, go talk to some other people, and then come back and hire me, and we'll kick it off from there, right? That's So I know our basic structure and how we do things. We've talked about this. Our basic structure and how we structure the conversation is a little different. But so after that kind of initial welcome, then I want to know a little bit kind of about you and about your story, right? I want to know, how did you guys meet and where did you meet? And, how long have you been engaged and what was the big grand gesture? Who did it, right? Like I want to know all of those things. Not only do I want to know it because it's going to warm up the conversation and we're going to, I'm going to have a little bit more of a connection with you, but it also gives me a little bit of insight into who you guys are as a couple, right?
Sneaky questions. Yeah. I'm a big believer in these. You can find out a lot that is applicable just from asking a few get to know you questions.
Right. Absolutely. Like if you just kind of like, hey, we were like sitting on a train. And I was like, do you want to get married? And, he or she said yes. Like,
we're not big planners. We're not good at making decisions. We're probably going to be a little more challenging to work with. I mean, these are all clues. They're giving you flags, red flags and green flags, beige flags, all the flags.
Exactly. And then that's kind of the same time that I want to get to know about your group. Like, what is first of all, what is your group like? Are you like a bunch of partiers and you are going to be at the swim bar all day long, and then like everyone's going to show up lobster red to the wedding? Cool, I'm good with it, but I want to know it.
Seen
right?
your photos. I've seen those photos. Yes, I've seen those weddings. Have you ever been like at a resort when a wedding's happening and you're just like, that's going to be fun in about 4 hours?
Exactly. I think one of my other favorite ones is like, are you pool, like laying by the pool people, or are you beach people?
Mhm.
Not only am I asking that because I want to know, like, first of all, like, do I need to find a beautiful beach that you're going to be at? But then also I'm asking that because it's a very different person that is down by the beach exploring, getting shells, you know, maybe playing volleyball, whatnot, like whatever you're doing down by the beach. Right?
Shells. I'm just picturing you with like your little bucket, like going, your little like Fisher Price bucket, building your sandcastles and getting your shells.
Exactly.
Continue.
Yeah. Or are you, you know, is your group going to be the people that is going to be by the pool, either, you know, chilling by like the quiet pool, reading your book and hanging out, and then, you know, going and having a prim and proper wedding? Or are you going to be at the pool again, swim up bar, let's see the parties that are going on, the, you know, aerobics. My favorite thing is doing the water aerobics with the
Oh, me
cocktail in my
too.
hand.
How
Yeah.
did we not know? I love it. Like that's one of my, and I'll just watch it even if I'm not doing it. I think it's
Yep.
hilarious.
I do it
Yeah.
with my cocktail. I'll grab my mojito,
Same.
my
It's
margarita.
a weight.
Yeah.
It's adding resistance to my workout. I agree.
But it's those questions that really helps to qualify what you're looking for, right? That's, you want to know what the experience you want your guests to have. Are you, you know, do you want your guests to have an amazing food experience? Do you want your guests to go in their room and lay in their jacuzzi and like hang out and chill? Like that's it, all of those questions that as a seasoned travel advisor, you've not only experienced for yourself, but you've experienced with other weddings. It's important to qualify with those to make sure that, you know, you understand where you're going.
So just you start with tell us about you, basically. Like it's, you know, tell us about you and how did you get here? Why a destination wedding? I always think that's like a good icebreaker question. Like, oh, so tell me why. And then what do you do next? What happens after that?
So it's now you've gone and told me everything about you. I think the next super important thing is that I tell you about us.
Yes.
About Destination Weddings Expert, who we are, how we started, how long we've been around. Why is it important that you know about us? So I go into the whole, you know, DWE's been around for 14 years. It was started by my husband. We're carrying on the legacy with the team. We're seasoned professionals with connections in the industry that help to make your planning process easier. And so it's talking about that entire experience and what sets us apart from other agencies, other advisors. As much as, you know, we do preach community over competition, also at this time, I'm selling myself, right?
Yeah.
And so it's important to, you know, identify what those differentiators are, not only to show what's important by working with us, but also that's my time to put out my red flags, my beige flags, right? Like it's my time to go out there and say, this is the way I handle things. Are you good with it? Because this is what we're going to do.
Yeah. Well, no, because they should know you're going to spend a lot of time with this couple. Like we talked about in the last episode, it's like 14, 16 months is the average time for an engagement. That's a relationship. That is, you know, we're going to be in this together for the next year and a half. And I want to know about you and what your goals are, what your dreams are, what you want it to look like, what you want it, you know, everything. But I also want you to know what I bring to the table and how the process works, because I think people instantly feel more comfortable when they know there's like a guiding hand taking them through each step, and you can set that relationship up in the consult.
I'm so proud of those first two steps that I kind of go through, because all of these couples that we're working with right now, I not only get to be professional with them and go through the planning with them and whatnot, but they feel completely comfortable with me when I'm, you know, flying out to Wisconsin. They're like, hey, you're just north of us. Come visit us in Chicago. Let's go hang out. It's nice to have that relationship with them. Not saying that you have to be friends with every couple that you work with.
You won't be.
You won't be. You won't be. But that you're able to have the opportunity to develop some sort of relationship with them is important, and it makes the whole planning process a lot easier.
Yeah. So let's pause here because we went through kind of like tell us about you and tell us about them, and now I'll tell you how our process is.
Yeah.
Process is a little different. Can't talk. Do you ever have the thing where like your brain moves faster than your mouth and you're just trying to like get it all out? I feel like that's the title of my memoir. So We kind of established this in the last episode, but we didn't say it today. Both of us, our consults really start before the consult.
Yes.
It is the filling out the intake form so we can kind of screen people and make sure we're going to be a good fit. We have that short email series that goes out after they make the appointment. Like, here's what you can expect. Here's what we're going to talk about. And then we can really use the like 45 minutes to an hour to really the goal of that first consult is, do we want to work together? And I say together because it's mutual. Like, it is mutual. We have a choice as business owners. We can choose to take this on or we cannot, and they can choose to work with us or not. So really, that's the goal of that first consult. You are not trying to plan an entire wedding in 45 minutes. Like, you're not trying to find out their like hopes and dreams and biggest fears and everything in that first hour. It's an introduction. It's a first date. And then in some of the other calls, we do more. So I set this up now because I see that mistake happening over and over with people. Like, they try to use that first call to, okay, here's who I am. Here's what you want. Here's the destinations you could go to. Here's how wedding packages work. Here's how the wedding team works. Here's how. It's too much. It's overwhelming and you've got to break it down. So we have similar approaches. I usually start with, I really will just tell them at the beginning, hey, what I just said, thanks so much for setting up, the appointment. Let's talk about what we're going to do. I'm going to give you a little agenda of how this next like 45 minutes will go, because I just think it's nice to know what's coming so we're not caught off guard. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions about the form you sent me, and then we'll trade places and I'll talk about like what I do and how the process works and what you can expect. And then we'll leave some time open at the end. And if we decide we want to take the next step, we'll talk about that at the end. Like, I just straight up tell them how it's going to be.
I love the agenda thing because that's the project manager in both of us. Like,
I know
how I started off too, like, this is what today's going to look like.
Yeah. I have gathered you here today because, and we probably ask pretty similar questions. Like, how did you get engaged? How long has it been? But I'm like a detective looking for clues. I'm like, oh, you've been engaged for 6 years and you're just now getting married. You're going to have a problem making decisions, and that's not a red flag. It just tells me how I have to communicate with them. They seem like someone who gets overwhelmed easily. We've got to break it down into small steps. Or you're interested in a destination wedding, but your family isn't, you want me to convince them. Ooh, that's going to be a tough one because we're going to be like fighting. It's going to be like pushing water uphill the whole way. So like all those questions, yes, you're just getting to know each other. And yes, it's polite. And yes, we want to understand what their plans are. But if you're smart, you can also use those questions as clues of how they're going to be to work with. Another one I ask is, it's actually in the intake form. It's not in the consult, but I love people's responses, is if it's Friday night, are you hosting? Are you showing up 15 minutes late? Or are you showing up on time with a snack? Like, I just want to know the type of people they are, because the people who say they're always 15 minutes late, that's a very different planning couple than someone who's hosting. You know what I mean? It's like a personality profile thing. I don't know. Do you have any weird questions like that?
No, but you just described the difference between me and my husband. That's
Oh, I know who's who. Yeah. It depends on the day for me. Sometimes my like secret shame, I guess, is that we usually host everything here because I don't want to go anywhere. So I'm like, if everyone just comes to our house, then I don't have to go anywhere. I can wear whatever I want. I can do whatever I want, and it's fine. So we tend to do that. Like the giant post Thanksgiving Friendsgiving that we're having tomorrow, it's at our house purely because I am lazy and don't want to go anywhere.
Now your friends that are listening to this are going to be like, okay.
Oh, they know. They know. If you've been to my house, like, this is how it is. So anyway, we get off track. But yeah, asking those questions, really being a good detective and trying to listen for clues. And it takes practice. Like, you may not pick up on things the entire way. Something that is a big turn off for me is actually when they fill out the form and the amount of information they put in the form. People who don't answer any questions, that's a red flag to me. People who answer like it's a 16-page dissertation and I need to know every detail is also a red flag to me.
Agreed.
Yeah. It's just, and the reason why is because I'm looking for people that value expertise and somewhere where I can help them. Like, they'll listen to input, they'll listen to suggestion. And sometimes people who just pound out every single detail, they're not open. They're not flexible, is what I'm trying to say.
One of my biggest red flags in my intake form is the one where I asked about your guest's budget and where you want that to land. Yeah. And the reason that it's not about, I don't care where you land in there, because if it's in there, you're one of our ideal clients, right?
Right.
But I make it not a singular choice. I make it so you can choose multiple, and the ones that'll go through and click all of them. Yeah. No, it's a problem.
Well, they just don't know. And that's telling too. To be honest, I don't really even listen to the budget. Like, I ask the question, And I'm not saying I don't care. I'm just saying that most people don't know. Like
Right.
if somebody fills out that consultation form or the request for a consult and you ask them their budget and they say like $2,500, like they probably just don't know how much things cost. It's like the first time you go to buy a house and you've been watching House Hunters and everything else and you think you're going to have all the things, and then you go to actually shop for a house and you realize what you can afford is not that.
Right.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes it's very eye-opening, and I think weddings are the same way. People just don't know how much stuff costs.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that isn't as much of a red flag for me. It's more of an education moment. Okay. So similar, we ask, when they got engaged. Another question I like to ask is, so what do your friends and family think? Stop, full stop, listen. Because that's where they're going to tell you things like, oh, they're super excited. We've already told them. Oh, my dad says that Mexico's dangerous and he doesn't want us to go there. My sister's getting married 3 months before me. I mean, it's all just like interesting feedback, because the couple is your client, but the guests are going to be the people that take up most of your time
Right.
for the next year.
And the ones that are going to book the room block. You need to know that, we talked last episode about percentage of people that are coming. I'm inviting 200 people, and how many people realistically are actually going to come to that. Those answers right there are going to be a lot of the guiding factor to it. My sister's getting married 3 months before. Guess what? You just lost, a good amount of your guests. They're not coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your parents are going to be stressed and they're going to be asking about every penny. And it's just, these are all things that come with practice. At the beginning, you may not hear or listen for all these things, but the more that you do it, like having consultations, it's like a workout. You just got to flex that muscle. And once you get really good at it, stuff just like pops out. One of the agents on my team was listening to me do a consult one day. And at the end, I was like, they're not going to book. Like, I just knew straight up. I was like, they're done. And she was like, how did you know that? And I was like, here's all the things that came up. And that's okay. I don't want to work with someone who doesn't want to work with us. Like, I'm not here to like convince them. I'm just telling them how we can help. But there's things that you just hear over and over. And sometimes you just know.
I think it's so important. This is kind of something more towards the end of the consult, but it's the bless and release also, right? We have
okay to say no.
Yeah, we have these consultations to make sure that we're a good fit for them and they're a good fit for us. And you have to be okay, even if you're a new agent who's just trying to build your book of business and move things forward. You have to be okay with saying, this is not a good fit. Let me not take this so I can open up my time for something that's going to be a better fit.
Opportunity cost is a big thing. Like, not everyone's a good fit. It's okay to say no, because when you close a door, you open a window. Like, it's just a space for someone else to come in and for the right person to come in. So I really am I'm listening for openness, flexibility, and a willingness to be led, if that makes sense. Like, good green flags for me are like, we want to do this, but we don't know where to start. We know kind of what we want to do, but we just need help. Or, our friends and family are nervous and we want someone, who can help show them that you do this all the time and this is a thing. Like, it's just listening for that flexibility. And then when I talk about me and us and the agency, some of that is in the email they got before the consult. Like, I do try to do the heavy lifting of, here's how I got started. Here's what we're doing. That's in an email they get before the consult, but we know not everybody reads. So I touch on it again and I tell a story. I don't do the dry, like, well, I started in 2015 and I book, 40, 50 weddings a year. Like, that's boring. Nobody wants to hear that. You have to take them on a story of like, I was planning a destination wedding and I couldn't find something that worked for me. And I knew there was a better way. And that's how we talk about it. And I'm sure you guys have a similar story too.
Same thing. That's one of the first things that we talk about, is that I was also a destination groom. I had the destination wedding. We went through the whole planning process. We saw what worked and what didn't work. And we saw that there was an opportunity to really streamline this process. And so we did.
Yeah. And here we are. And that tells them about you. It tells them your motivation. It gives them confidence that you have not only been on the planning side, you've been on the other side of it. You've had the friends and family questions. You've dealt with it on all sides. And not everyone will have that same story, because not everybody had a destination wedding. So just find a story that talks about you and how you got into travel, or why you love weddings. Because let's be real, you have to love it. Like, you have to love some part of it. The way my part of that is, I actually, and this is an attraction thing. We talked about attraction. I will straight up say I had a destination wedding because I was not the girl that had planned my wedding from 5 years old. Like, I didn't have a scrapbook. I didn't have a Pinterest board. And that attracts a certain type of client to me. Like, I can say, we were just in it for the vacation, or we were just in it to have a good time with our group. I just needed help with the logistics. That attracts a certain kind of bride or groom to me, because I am probably not not the best fit for someone who's had a Pinterest board for 10 years planning their wedding. We value different things. And it's important to know that just because I'm not a good fit, someone else probably is, and I can help them find that person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I guess before we get into the educational part of the call, what else do you do on the nurturing side of the call? Like the setting things up. Is there anything else that you go through there?
So I usually I ask a lot of questions and I warn them up front. I'm like, listen, this is going to feel like an interrogation, but I have your best interest at heart. I'm just trying to get inside your head a little bit. Like when you close your eyes, what do you picture for the day? Like, are you picturing toes in the sand on the beach, or do you have something else in mind? Like, are you picturing a lot of activities, that your friends and family would participate in? Like, are you thinking like a welcome party and a reception? Like, I'm really just asking questions to get them to talk. And sometimes people don't know, and that's fine. And sometimes the two of them don't know, or they haven't talked to each other. And so that can be really telling of like, if one person has a completely different concept of the day than the other, then this is a moment to bring those two things together and make sure we're all on the same page. So, a bride told me once after the fact, like when she was writing a review, she said, you were the only one that asked us what we wanted. She was like, we did consults with a few people and they just launched right into, well, here's what I do. Here's who I am. This is what we can do. This is the resort you should get married at. This is my fee. Okay, bye. She was like, you were the only one that like got to know us and had a conversation. And I thought that was really telling. And it's really educational for anyone listening to this.
It's very educational. We will talk about this a little later on in this episode, but to talk about a specific resort on this call is a mistake.
Yeah.
Just flat out, I'll come out and say it and we'll talk about it why later, but to talk about any specific resort, unless they bring it up and even then just glaze over it, this is not the time to do that.
I will flat out avoid mentioning specific resorts, but I will ask, like, have you done any research? Like, yes. Have you looked at, and if they say, there's Ellie, I knew someone would bark eventually. I will say, have you, sorry. She's got opinions. She has resorts that she likes and she doesn't like, and she has opinions.
Preach.
Yeah, exactly. She's like, excellence. So that's how she's barking. But I'll say, have you reached out to anyone? Because one, I want to know where in the process they are, and I want to know what opinions they've already formed. I want to know if they've been why are there balloons on?
What is going on?
So for anyone who is not watching, literally Zoom just exploded with balloons all over my face. Like there were balloons falling off the screen in front of, I have no idea what has happened. Oh my God. Okay. Anyway, I want to know where they are in the process. I want to know if they're in these god awful Facebook groups where all these people who know nothing about anything are talking. So I'll say, like, who have you reached out to? What have you done? And if they mention resorts, like, oh, I'm just going to list resorts because it's easier. Like we were looking at Rio, we were looking at Casa de la Playa, we were looking at Excellence. And I'll say, wow, you've got a big range there. And then I'll just move on. Like I just, I want to drop little hints that maybe they don't know as much as they think they know, but the first 45-minute consultation is not the place to debate this resort versus that resort.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. The only time I will get into a resort debate on that initial call is if it's a resort that we will not work with.
Yeah.
There are resorts that I will not work with, and I won't even get into a debate about it, but it'll be just a very, hey, just making sure this is a good fit. Just so you know, if this is what you're set on, it's not a property that we work with.
Yeah, I'm not afraid to say it because I don't think they're out there waiting for me, but I won't book sandals. Like I'm not a sandals person. And so even if I see that in the consult forum, like, oh, we're interested in sandals, I will just say, hey, I'm not the right fit for you. Let me refer you. And I'll give them 3 or 4 names of other agents in the playbook that I know do work with sandals, and I can give it to them because it's just not for me.
Absolutely. Same approach. Yeah.
Okay. So getting to know them, listening for all those little things. And then there's a place where we probably both transition and talk about, okay, here's the planning process and here's what we do. So how do you start that part?
So I first go into my favorite first question in that more educational part of the consultation is to talk about a room block. Do you know what a room block is? And do you know how it works? Yeah. And I think that's a really important question to dive into on the call.
Yeah.
Not to go too far into details about it, but so that they know a basic understanding of what they're signing up for if we're going to do, if we're going to move forward. We only book a room block. We don't do flex
Flex
groups.
groups. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's important that they know that this is how this process is going to work. And I walk through them a little bit of a timeline. Hey, 5 minutes after this call, you're going to get an email from me, and there's going to be a link to engage. Once you engage, there's the Trello board. Then and then we talk about resort recommendations, and then we get into contract with the room block, and that's where I talk about how that whole room block process works with deposits. And right now, so many, I'm sure you're experiencing it, so many resorts are changing their deposit.
Really hard to keep up with.
Yeah. And so you have to kind of prepare them for it right off the bat. Hey, that's oftentimes it's $100 per room, but that's, some processes are changing. So, if you go above 25 rooms, it may be 10% now, which is a large price difference when you're talking about $100 per room compared to 10% of an entire room block. It's so without overwhelming them, I like to just kind of touch on what that room block process looks like.
Yeah.
And then from there, from the room block, I like to share my screen at that point. And so I share my screen and I walk through our Trello board. This is what our Trello board looks like. These are some of the main pieces that you're going to want to hit. This is a tool for you, so you can use it for all your planning. We have it broken down by month, what you should be focusing on. And this is where you find your happy couple and flight information and things like it's all there, right?
You show that you've got it locked down. Like, this is our process. We do this every day. Feel confident in us because we have a method and it works.
Exactly. I want to show them that I'm not pulling this out of my ass, that I'm not just, blowing smoke, right? I want them to understand that it's all already there for them, that it's all going to move forward the second they decide to engage with us. So I show them the Trello board, I show them the Appy couple and what their guests are going to be able to, read, why each one of those sections are there, so that when their guests come back and ask questions, they already have the answers. And they already know where to point them to. I show them the group booking link, and then I also show them the group roster, so that they know, hey, this tool is here for you. As soon as your guest is signed up, you're going to be able to see that they're deposited and that they've either paid in full or they're expired or whatever just kind of show the basic structure and all that.
Do you use the VCRM rooming list for that?
I do.
Okay. Yeah, we don't. I made my own, but I got to save time. In some places we might switch to that. Anyway, sidebar, go on.
The tool is there, and I like to use things that work well. It works fantastic. So there's a place in their Trello board where they can click on the link and that's all there. I say all that to say there's the good bulk of my conversation is in that section. I will really break down that entire process, what it looks like, why you're working with us, and why we're the experts in the industry to do that.
I think I'm getting this look because I'm thinking the wheels are turning. I think like 25% of our call is tell us about you and what you're looking for and your vision and all that. 50% of the call is let me tell you how this works. Let's talk about the process. And then the last 25% is like Q&A, next steps, things like that too. I think that. Okay. So you said a couple of things I want to break down. You talked about Trello and you talked about some specific tools. I don't think the exact tool is as important as that you have a process and you have a plan. Sometimes people get caught up on oh, Mario uses Trello, so I need to run and get Trello. That's not what we're saying. No,
not at all. And thank you. And we did touch on that in episode 6 a little bit. Forgot that we hadn't talked about that here. So
I assume people listen to every word we say. So because there's so much.
Hang on our every word. But it's important to know any concept that we ever talk about when we're running through the modules and the courses and when we're having these conversations, it's important to know that we're talking about the strategy and the concept behind it. If I ever mention a tool that we use or that DWE uses, even Alpaca does not use the same tools that we use. And so, Trello, Appy couple, anything like that is just one form. VCRM is one form of a tool that helps us execute the strategy.
Yeah. You're using Trello as like a hub, a home for them, a place to feel like when they have all these questions, they can go and they feel confident that the answers are there or they have a way to find you. You're basically saying, without saying, I'm going to have your back through this whole process. I'm here to handhold you through the whole process, electronically, physically, like we have all these ways that we've got you. It doesn't matter if it's Trello. I use Dipsado, but people could use anything. I don't care if it's like a Google Doc that they send them. As long as that couple feels like, oh, you have a process and you have a system, you're demonstrating that in the call, which is really important.
Absolutely. The demonstration, that's a really good point.
I could spend more time on that, honestly. So this part is, it's similar, but I'll start with, have you talked to any resorts? And usually I hear the story of, well, we reached out to this place, but we haven't heard back. Or, oh, they sent us a bunch of attachments, but I don't know I don't understand them. And I'll say, well, welcome to planning a wedding. This is how 50% of people find me. Like about 50% of our business comes from referrals. We're really lucky to have a lot of repeat guests or, people who went to weddings and now they're going to plan their own. The other 50% find me exactly the way that you did. They start off in this process, they get overwhelmed. No one's really educating them about how this works. Resorts are very good about emailing you a bunch of attachments and information. They are time strapped and not always able to actually educate you on why things happen the way that they do. So I'm going to take the next few minutes to kind of just walk you through the timeline and the process and speak up if you have questions along the way. And then I'll say things like, okay, I'm a matchmaker for places and resorts. Like we're going to have another call. Like I set it up right there on our next call, like, cause they're in on our next call, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about where and when, and this resort versus that resort and all these things. And at the end of all that, I'm going to disappear and I'm going to come back a few days later with 4 or 5 resorts that I think are a good fit. And then you're going to look at those and give me feedback. We pick one. There's 2 deposits we have to place. And then I walk through like the ceremony deposit. Now let's talk about a room block. A room block does not mean that all 25 rooms are going to be right next to each other. Like I actually explain it from the beginning of what it is. And they're usually nodding and taking notes and asking questions. And I'm demonstrating that I know what I'm doing. It's the expertise and trust that you're building in that part of the call.
Absolutely. I don't talk about that on my consult, and I really should. It's the room block and what, the rooms aren't necessarily right next to each other because so many couples believe that that's the case.
Yeah. They think they're like carving out a building for them. And that's just virtually impossible to do. So yeah.
The logistics on the back end, we don't need to go into it on this call, but the logistics on the back end of where they place your group once, once you're ready to start traveling, it's completely different than what you think and on how it works. So anyways.
Well, no, so then I use that as a time to we talk about timing and deposits. And then you and I are different in that you will still do some full service wedding planning. I don't, I just do the travel. So I always take that time to say, okay, you're probably wondering what I do versus what the resort does. Let's talk about that for a second. And I explain how that works. And then I can almost always tell if it's a go or not by the types of questions they ask at that. Because if they immediately jump into, well, what if we don't book all 30 rooms? Or what do we have to pay for the deposit? Or are you going to be there when we have the calls with the wedding planner? These are just clues of how it's going to be. And I'm not saying positive or negative. You can just kind of tell which way they're going. If all their questions about money, even if they say they have a good budget, if all of their questions are about money, they are more price conscious than you think. And they may be afraid to tell you that. But if all of their questions are about process and responsibility and how it happens, they're probably going to be pretty good about letting you just lead them. And they are going to be, good with their feedback, good with the response time and things like that. They just want to know that you've got it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I guess then from there, so now you've educated the couple on how the whole process works and, what a room block is and what it's like to work with you and your agency. My next step from there is then to jump into the final part of the call, which I make the shortest part of the call. If we're talking percentages, this is maybe 10%. And I do just kind of, this is it. This is how it goes. But that last 10% is talking about packages and cost.
Yeah.
So that's where I kind of recap. Okay, you're going to have the wedding contract deposit. You're going to have the room block deposit. Now, just remember that room block deposit, you don't lose that if
goes towards your room.
Yeah. Those things you'll go into. And then I talk about our packages and I break down, this is how Destination Weddings Expert works. These are the packages that are available to you. And, this is how these next step of the process is going to go. You're going to receive an email from us about 5 minutes after this call that, thanks you for joining us. And it talks about a little bit of what we discussed. In there is going to be terms and conditions. And in there is going to be a link where you can pay us directly. This is how the payment, options work.
Yep. Exactly. My favorite way, it's very similar to what we do, but my favorite way to transition to that is when I'm done with my shtick and they say, okay, how much do you cost? Or how do we pay you? Or how that's yeah. I mean, that is when you just get so excited, you were like, boom, I did it. They obviously get it. They get what we do. They get the value that we bring. And when they're trying to give me their credit card, when we're not even done with the call, that is the biggest win ever. So yeah, we kind of transition to, all right. I'll ask if they have any questions. And then usually they have a few about could you repeat this part or could you say that? And that's all great because they're engaged and they're listening. I will then talk about, do you know how travel advisors make a living? And I'll just straight up say it like, I think that, or have you talked to anyone else? Like, that's usually how I start it. And then maybe they'll explain, or sometimes even like a person will say, well, why do you charge? Are you free? Or like, there's a way that we get into me asking, do you understand how travel advisors make a living? And I'll say, as we get to know each other, this is my personality, like good, all good, bad, and ugly. I'm going to tell you everything. And one thing I want you guys to be aware of is how this industry actually works, because that sets up what I'm going to talk about next, which is my fee and how this all works. And so I will just say, like, let's pretend you came to me for a honeymoon. You know, it would be a scaled down version of what we just talked about. You know, we go through the steps, you travel, I'm here to help you. Travel advisors make a living. We earn a commission from the hotel. I just straight up tell them. And we only get that commission when two things happen. When I'm the agent of record on the booking, so I physically have to make the booking, and two, not until you come home. So it's kind of a weird backwards industry where we're not compensated for all of our training and expertise and, you know, relationships until after the event is over. So that's why for weddings, it's a longer time. There's more setup. There's more guests. There's more people to work with. We do charge a planning fee for weddings. And here's why. Like, I go through that whole setup because sometimes I think if you don't explain it to them, all they hear is the number and they don't see the value of what you're doing. Absolutely. And 9 times out of 10, when I get to that and I explain the fee, they usually will say, is that it? Like, oh, we thought it would be more. After everything you just told us, we thought it would be more. And my fee is higher than a lot. Like, I'm on the higher end compared to some other people in the industry. But oh my gosh, how like validating is that and fulfilling when people are like, is that it? It makes you feel amazing.
Well, and coming from the business perspective of it, right? It makes sense for you to set your fee to a place where it's going to qualify the couple that's coming in. You want to make sure that they're comfortable paying that, because if they're not, you know, that you're looking at a different type of couple than you're trying to attract. It also does make sure, you know, that it conveys the fact that you are confident in what you're doing and that you are confident that you will earn whatever this fee is, right?
Yeah.
They need to know that it's not something that is negotiable or something that you're, you know, that you can have any sort of flexibility with. It really does need to be.
It's a business. Yeah, like you're not just pulling it out of your ass. Like, there's a reason why it costs what it does, and there's an explanation.
That leads me into one of my favorite topics. So
I saw your wheels turning. You knew this was good. Yeah.
So, and I want to circle back because we meant to start this whole thing with a funny story that you had on Consult. I want to circle back to that, but
I'll tell you. First,
I want to get to some of the biggest mistakes that you see travel advisors make with consultations. And obviously the fee thing, you know, that brought up my one, but you start off from there and just kind of give me
yeah. Well, I think some people try to fit way too much into the first call. I view it as an introduction to a relationship. It's like a 45-minute, like sitting at the bar, cocktail speech. What do? You know, this is what I do. Like, I'm not trying to like marry them in the first call. Like, we're literally just like setting it up. And then I also think that establishes the value of, I do this professionally. This is not a hobby. I am not begging for your business. I think confidence is really important. This is the process that we follow. If you decide to work together, we'll talk about all that on the next call after you have signed my contract. Like, I don't just give it away for free. So I think people try to fit too much into that first call. And also some people do give it away for free. They'll list out who are your favorite resorts? Oh, I work with this and this and this. And then that person's just going to go online and book it themselves. Like, people just share too much sometimes.
Absolutely.
You gotta leave some mystery.
I was just gonna say, there's something to be said about playing your cards close to you, right? Like, this call is not supposed to be the like end all be all. This is what we're gonna do, and this is how it's gonna happen, and done. Like, it is a introductory call to get a feel for each other, to find out if you're a good fit. Part of finding out if you're a good fit is them understanding what the process is going to be and what it looks like. Trust the process. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So that's really such an important part of that, is not giving away some of that resort information on that first call, not necessarily talking about packages and details about packages, right? Like, you can talk about certain hotels of certain packages that might work better for your group, fine, but I wouldn't talk about the resort. I wouldn't talk about what that package looks like on this call. And then, like you said, that charging a fee, which I just think is one of the most essential parts of this.
The hill I will die on.
Yeah. Like, you will never see us jump into a relationship with a couple without a planning fee, some sort of planning fee. If there is a legit reason why you don't need to charge your full planning fee, that's a decision that you can make on the fly as a business owner. But I disagree,
but continue.
I think that you should always be charging your full planning fee. This is what it is.
I
You
agree.
should not discount yourself and make it seem like it's a negotiation. There's little one-offs that I have in the back of my head on why, but it's, for the most part, there should always be that planning fee so that they have skin in the game.
Yes. And that's so one of my favorite ways to, like, I don't bring this up with everybody. It depends on how it's going. And it's just a gut feel. I'll say like, oh, have you talked to anyone else? And they'll say, well, no, you're the only one. We saw your website. We loved your personality. Like, we pick you. And I'm like, boom. Well, selfishly, I hope you don't, because I would love to work with you. And then we move on, you know? But then sometimes they'll say, oh, we talked to insert big box wedding planning, doesn't charge a fee agency here, you know, or we saw an ad for this. And I'll say, oh, that's interesting. Did you talk to them? And the stories I get are things that you can maybe not expect, or maybe people don't know, but I usually hear things like, well, we set up an appointment and they never called us back. Ooh, that one kills me. Like no follow-up. Or we felt like we were just a number. Like we could tell they were rushed and we just didn't feel comfortable. They didn't ask us anything about ourselves, that we just felt rushed. Or yeah, we did. And they actually just sent us a whole bunch of resorts without even really caring about what we told them. And it was just the same resorts over and over. And so if that comes up, I will say, or if someone asks, why do you charge a fee when XYZ is free? I'll say, okay, let's talk about that. Like, you know, I am set up in a different way than some other agencies. It's about volume and it's about mutual collaboration is what it's about. If I charge a fee because I am trying to work with the couples who are the most interested in working with me, absolutely, I want to have a work-life balance. And people really respect that. When you just say like, I don't want to plan 100 weddings a year. Like I have a family, I have a life, I have things that I'm doing. This is just part of my life. I try to keep my life pretty manageable. And doing that means to give the quality of service I want to give you, to spend an hour and a half with you on the phone, to talk to your friends and family and answer all their questions. I have to limit who I can take, and charging a fee is the best way for me to do that. I just want to work with the people who are most committed to working with me. And that's what I'll just finish this thought. I also add, if you got to think about the level of service and what you get for the money. And if you want free, you will probably get a free level of service. Period. And if you're paying me a fee, I work for you. I don't work with the hotel. So one thing that you might notice is if you work with a free service, they're probably pushing the same resorts over and over because those resorts pay them the highest commission. Like, I'm just going to be blunt and tell you, like, I will flat out say that. Yeah. And if you work with someone like me who does charge a fee, I don't have to take everyone that walks in the door. I can recommend the resort that's right for you because my fiduciary obligation is to you, not the hotel.
Absolutely.
I have a feeling we just pissed off a lot of people with that, but that's fine.
It's okay. It's important to have those conversations. It's important to understand why we do the things that we do, because if you don't agree with the concept or you don't understand why the concept is there, then you're not going to be able to be successful with it.
And your time is worth something. Like, your time is worth it. You need a couple that is going to invest in you the way that you're investing all of your time in them. And unfortunately, money is the only thing I think that can fix that. Like, that's the only way you can guarantee that a couple is really going to be invested, is if they pay you something. Like, because otherwise they could walk away at any given moment.
Absolutely. And we've seen that happen in the industry with other advisors. We've seen other advisors who had a couple and were working with them, and the couple just left. And you won't see that happen when you charge it.
No, because you're in a committed relationship. I'm going to keep going back to the dating analogy. But like, you're committed to each other, and it's harder for someone just to walk away. And so this is probably the biggest disagreement that Will and I ever had. We would debate this ad nauseum for hours. Is I put my fee on my website. I do a starts at. Our destination wedding fees start at. And he was adamantly against that. And I understood his point of view. He understood my point of view. We just agreed to disagree, but it doesn't mean we didn't fight about it all the time. So where do you fit into that? Like,
as of right now, you're going to see on our website that our fees are not on our website.
Yep.
However, I do not feel as strongly in that conviction in that as Will did. It's important that anyone who is, before you get to that dating part, when you're, I almost just said an app that was not appropriate at all. That's when you're on that dating profile app, right? And you're looking at people, right? You want to make sure that it's all out there and all out in the open. I can definitely see the argument to having your fees on your site. The way that ours are structured, it's not quite as easy to just.
Yeah, exactly. Because it depends.
Yeah, two of them make sense, and you can really spell that out pretty easily. There's one package that it's just kind of more of a gray area, and that's a little harder to explain on the site. But that may be something I may be considering in the future here.
I think it changes based on where you are in your career too. At the beginning, I didn't, because I wanted all the consults. I wanted the practice, good ones and bad ones. Like I wanted, at the beginning, I took weddings that weren't my ideal client because I had to learn. And I think there's something to be said for that. So not putting them on there at the beginning maybe is right for you, because then you get everybody and you can practice and learn and develop like who you are and who your ideal client is. But once you get to a point where you're a little more established, you don't have that kind of time anymore. So I'm not going to waste time with the guy that only wanted to talk to me if I could guarantee I could get a horse and carriage on the beach at a specific resort. That was the consult story. Like he didn't answer a single question in the form except, can you guarantee that you can provide a horse and carriage on the beach in Mexico like at this day? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And that was one where I did say, I was like, you know what? I don't think I'm the best fit for you. I mean, I get that people have like their thing, that's their, important thing, but it was the tone and how he communicated it and how it was. I don't want to work with that person. Or I had someone there. Here's the opposite. I had a consult with someone, a very sweet couple. We did end up working together. And it was that both people were on the call. And after the call, the groom DM'd me on Instagram. He's like, hey, it was great to meet you. Thanks. I have a surprise that I really want to pull off for her. If I tell you what it is this something that's possible? Like he wasn't like, it's just the tone and how he communicated it. And it was super sweet. And he wanted a red carpet for her as she walked down the aisle. But he wanted to like unroll it, because when he proposed, he said, I promised her a red carpet life and I want to give that to her. Do you know how hard it is to find a freaking red carpet in the DR?
I was going to ask.
You would think that would be an easy thing. It was not. And the resort wanted to charge like $1 trillion for it. Like it was ridiculous. We figured it out, but like, it was just, I forget where I'm going with this, but it was about like, I think red flags and charging what you're worth and knowing your value. Fees on the website. There we go. Woo! Just have like a whole cul-de-sac with myself. Now I do put the starts at on my website because I'm trying to screen a little bit better. But there are times if I'm slower, I'll take it off and the calls come in like that.
Yeah.
Like, so that just shows you how it works. It can be a barrier or it can, work in your favor, but you just have to be confident in it either way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That makes complete sense. So with the consultations, then it's, we talk about it, they're coming into the funnel, they're looking at the intake form. We have, we go through our early dating, who we are, who they are, what it looks like. We're talking about the education and then packages. Is there anything else that you really like to make sure that you address on the consult before you get off the call with the couple so that you're sure that it's a good fit?
This isn't so much like on the call, but I think it's a very important part of the follow-up. If you are going to charge a fee, actually, whether you charge a fee or not, you have to have a service agreement. You have to have like a follow-up document that says, okay, here's the rules of the game here. This is what I do. This is what I don't do. This is what I charge. Sign here, pay here. There has to be some kind of like commitment. And that is something that you should write alongside your attorney. We can't tell you, it's a business agreement. And so you need to have an attorney look at it. But what that document does is, in addition to like, it's the mechanism that collects the fee in a lot of cases, and you're getting their signature and their buy-in, but it just helps. Like being clear is kind, being clear about what you do and what you don't do. It's a document you can refer to later. So there's no misunderstanding. And mine has evolved a lot over time because of some misunderstandings. Like I think we all have situations where maybe you weren't as clear about something, or maybe you could have said it in a different way. I go right back and update that service agreement. So when the next couple contacts me, they see I don't do domestic. I don't do non-all-inclusive resorts. Like all those things are listed in my planning agreement. So that's something I think it's really critical to have after the fact. Like, yes, they bought in. Yes, you had a great time on the call. They were lovely. You got to know them. Everything was wonderful. You have to have a document that shows in writing what you're going to do and what you're not going to do.
I honestly, out of everything that we just spoke about, that is the most important.
Yeah, it's really important. It'll save you a lot of heartache later.
Making sure that you're protected and making sure they understand that they have bought into this, that it is, a business agreement that they're entering into. It's just something that you never want to take and throw back in anyone's face, but you have it there in case you need to be like, hey, this is what we agreed to. This has changed. Then we need to discuss.
And you talked about mistakes, or asking like mistakes that we see. That is one, I see in like Facebook groups and things like this. I'm working with this couple and they blah, blah, blah. And what I always want to say is, what's in your service agreement? Right. Like what, I've done 10 quotes for them and they won't make a choice. what does your service agreement say? Like, because mine says I will give them 3 to 5 options. And if they don't like those options, I charge another service fee. Like you have to have like those boundaries in place because people will just run you ragged. And it's healthy for you as a person. It's healthy for your family. It's like boundaries are a good There's a great book. If someone needs a book about boundaries, we can post the link to it. I'm blanking on the name right now, but it's about boundaries in business and boundaries in life and how they're not barriers. They're actually being really kind to yourself and to the people around you who are important to you, because you're just protecting your energy and your time.
Absolutely.
Trying to find that book. I don't know.
We can post a link to it.
Yeah, but I'm going to find it. Anyway, go on. If I don't do it right now, I'll forget. And you're going to be like, what was that book? And you know how we set boundaries, find peace.
Yes.
That is the book. And there's like a business version of it too. That was really helpful for me. But that service agreement, it's not, people think you're like being cold or impersonal or legal or whatever. No, it's protection. It's protection for you and it's protection for them. So everybody's on the same page. Everyone knows what they're getting into and it's very clear moving forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I know this last part of it got a little scary. I do just kind of want to reiterate this part of the process. I know it's not for everyone, but this part of the process is just my absolute favorite part of it. It's you get to sit down, really get to know your couple, introduce yourself to someone new. That's, have the conversation. If nothing else, as for newer agents that are out there, it's practice. It's something where you can go in and sit down and have the conversation, find your comfort zone, because in your comfort zone is going to be your confidence. And you want to be able to make sure that as long as you have all these tools in place and all this information, and you know what you are and are not speaking about on this, and you know that this is just an interview both for you and for them.
Oh yeah.
It helps put you in a place of confidence so that when you get to the very end of the call and you say, hey, this is my service fee, this is what I charge in order to work with me, you're confident and comfortable saying that. And that will come across tenfold in this consultation.
And then when you get that email that said that they've signed or they've paid, it's like the best high in the world. Like you feel amazing. Like you have a great consult, and then the ones that like pay really quickly or sign really quickly, it's like the best part of this job. That is only equal to when you get your commission check. Like those are like the two high moments. Well, let's be real. None of us work for free, but those are like two really strong high points. And if you are on the fence about weddings, the first time you get a commission with a comma in it compared to like the smaller stuff, you just feel so good because you're supporting yourself, you're supporting your family, you're helping these couples, you're doing it, in a way that works for everybody. It's a really great feeling.
Absolutely. Cool. All right. Well, this was an amazing episode and one of my favorite topics to talk about. Ashley, thank you again, as always, for helping us.
I should thank you. I will thank you for the random balloons that popped up on the screen while I still don't even know how that happened. You had some
thumbs up question, like things coming out of your head before as well. I have no idea how that's on or what's going on, but I find it to be hilarious.
Oh my God, it's fun. Great. Well, I think this is our last one before the holidays.
I believe so.
Taking a little break, but we'll be back. We have lots of fun things planned.
There's so much more to talk about. This is just kind of the tip of the iceberg, the front end, and leading into a lot of analogies crammed into one. Just walking through kind of the attraction and the conversion, but there's going to be a lot more to talk about as we move through.
Great. Well, thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Running a travel business may have its challenges, but with a dash of humor, the right tools, an amazing community, and a lot of wine, success awaits us all. Raise a glass with us and toast to your remarkable journey.
Don't forget, if you're ready to take the next step in your travel career, one where you can focus on developing your niche, attracting leads, converting them into new clients, and automating your systems, you can build the business of your dreams. If you're ready, join us in the Playbook Inner Circle at jointheplaybook.com. We can't wait to see you inside.